We continue now at the top of Daf Chavav Amud Aleph from Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 26a. And the previous summer, the Gemara was discussing the halacha. Let's say a Nazir separates money for his karbanos. The karbanos he's going to bring at the end of the term of the Nazirus, and then he dies. So that's a situation of ma'ustumin. You have the money that wasn't designated specifically which money is going for which karban. And so we said over there, when you have this ma'ustumin, so it's yiplu l'nedava, it goes to donations to the Beis HaMikdash for communal karbanos. And the Gemara had asked, well, why is that the case? Isn't there the value, the money that is for carbon chatas, even though it hasn't been designated, but it's mixed within that money? And that money is really supposed to go to the Yam HaMelech. So why are you able to use this money to bring these carbon olas on the Mizbeach, again, for these communal karbanos? And so the Gemara said it's a special, one approach was it's a special halacha, specifically by Nazir. And so the Gemara said, is it only by Nazir? We actually find a different place where we find such a halacha. And the Gemara brings a brisa, and the Gemara is now in the middle of this brisa. The brisa says, let's say you have a situation where an individual is poor, so he has to bring bird karbanos, sheifrishu mos lekineim. They separated the money for the birds, for the nests. Ratza lahavi ben chatos behema yavi. Now, if they want to bring a carbon chatos of an animal, they can do that. Or olas behema yavi. If they want to bring a carbon ola from an animal, they can do that. And then it brings exactly our situation. Mace, let's say the person dies, v'hayu lo mos tumen, he has this money, and again, it's money that hasn't been determined which particular money is going for which particular carbon. It says the exact same halacha, yiplu l'nedava, that is used as donation to the Beis HaMikdash to bring the communal karbanos. So how could you say it's only halacha by Nazir? We find the same halacha over here. And the Gemara answers, Tana Nazir v'chai vekinin dedamule. It's true by Nazir, but it's also true by chai vekinin because that is similar to Nazir. Rashi over here says, Sheifrishu mos lekinein v'yacharkach heshiru kagon mitzora. We're talking, for example, a mitzora. So if the mitzora is poor, they bring the bird karbanos. If they become wealthy, so then they bring the animals. In this case, they separated when they were poor. That's when they designated the money. But then the person became wealthy. So im chayve chatas va'olahein im ratza lahosif alein ulahavi mehen chatas behema yavi. In other words, the point is that same money, which originally was supposed to be used for the bird karbanos, you can now say instead, I'm going to use it for the animal karbanos. Just add on some more money to that money and bring the new carbon. And then the part of the brisa that we want is meis v'hayulo mos tumen yiplu l'nedava. If the person dies and you have this money, it's used for the donation for the communal karbanos in the Beis HaMikdash. Ve'ein choshen l'dmei chatas shaben. And again, we see the same thing. We're not concerned with the fact that mixed into this money is money for carbon chatas. And the Gemara said, Tana Nazir v'chai v'kinin dedamule. Chai v'kinin is similar to Nazir. The Nazir tamei mei v'kinin, because a Nazir who is tamei, he brings kinim also. He also brings birds. Since we say that by a Nazir Tameh, so we say this halacha by Nazir Torah as well. Shemeis v'hayulo mos tumen yiplu l'nedava. That if he dies and he has mos tumen, so it goes l'nedava. They have this similarity, and therefore the halacha is similar. Tosas has a slightly different approach. V'im Tomar, Tosas asks, "B'mai dami l'Nazir? How is this similar to Nazir? Shemevian al davar echad shnei karbanos." The reason is because they're bringing on one thing. They're bringing two karbanos. Kamo Nazir al Nazirus, so that's similar by a Nazir on the Nazirus brings multiple karbanos on this Nazirus. V'yoledus u'mitzora shemeviim gam heim al davar echad beis karbanos. The same is true by Yoledus and Mitzora. That is the similarity. And the Gemara continues, "Ulafuke mehadatanya." This halacha that we said, if you have this most stumen, they can be used for communal karbanos. That excludes the following case, as we learned in a brisa, and this is from the Tosefta. Mishayim mechuyev chatos. Let's say somebody is chayev chatos. V'yamar harei olai ola, and then he also says, upon me, I'm going to bring upon myself an obligation. I'm going to take upon myself an obligation to bring a carbon ola. So really, these are two separate obligations. He has an obligation as a chatos, and he also has an obligation that he put upon himself to bring a carbon ola. V'hivrish mos. Then what he did was he separated money. V'yamar, and he said, harei elu lechovasi. Then I'm using this for my obligation. So Ratza lahavi ben chatos behema lo yavi. If he wants to use that money for chatos behema, he can't do it. Olas behema lo yavi. If he wants to bring an olas behema, he can't do that as well. Meis, and then let's say he dies, v'hayu lo mos tumen, and he has this money that he separated, that again, it wasn't designated clearly for which carbon, yelchu liyam hamelach. That money has to go to the yam hamelach. The point is that in this particular case, we do not say that the mos tumen is yiplu l'nedava. Rashi says, ulafuka mehadatani mishoyim mechuyev chatos v'yamar alai ola linadava, v'hivrish mos v'yamra elu l'chovasi, ratza lavi ben chatas behema lo yavi. He's not allowed to bring a chatas behema. Lefi sheyesh lomar shema shem ola chalalan, because we don't know this money. Maybe it's for the ola. Ulahavi olas behema yafshi. You can't use the money for the olas behema. Shema l'shem chatas hivrish osan amos. Maybe this money is for chatas. But less lu takana. There is no solution in this case. Now, why is this case different than the case by Nazir? The kamash malon dahachi ugabe Nazir udadamile dechay bechatas uveola bevasachas. The difference is by Nazir in similar cases, the chi of chatas and the chi to bring an ola, it all comes from the same source. It all comes at the same time. Tahasam udamar halacha diyiplu linadava. There we say that the money can be used as donation to the Beis Hamikdash for communal karbonos. Aval kol echad lo neschay bechatas uveola al ma'isa echad. But if you have a chi of chatas and an ola that are independent, the chi is not coming from one ma'isa, lo amrinan hachi. Then we don't say that. That's why we say in that situation the money has to go to the Yam HaMelech. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Ashi says, Hada Amrit Mefurashin Lo. That which we said the halach is, let's say the money is specified, so then the halach is not the same as if it's Mo Stumin. In other words, let's say you have a situation where the Nazir separates money for the karbonos, and he actually says this particular money is going for carbon chatos, this particular money is going for carbon ola, etc. So then the halacha was different. In that situation, the money that was designated for carbon chatos, let's say the person dies, that has to go to Yam HaMelech. The money that was designated for ola can be used to bring carbon ola. So that which we said this halacha by mefurashin, lo tema da'amar elu lechatasi ve'elu la'olasi ve'elu l'shlam. I don't think that the case has to be where the person says this particular money is for my chatas, this particular money for my ola, this particular money for my shlamim. Ela afilu amar elu lechatasi ula'olasi ve'ulu. Even if the person says this money in general is for my chatas, ola, and shlamim, doesn't make it to such a specific designation, mefurashin. And even that is called mefurashin. That's considered to be that it's specifically designated. Some have the version as follows. Amar Rav Ashi says, Lo tema adamar elu lechatasi ula'olasi v'l'shlamai. He doesn't need to say, this is for my chatas, my ola, and my shlamim. Ela afilu amar, even if he says it as follows, elu lechovasi, these are for my obligations, harehen k'mefurashin. That money is treated like money that is already specified what it's going for. And Rashi over here says, V'hechi dami stumim. Now, according to this, what would be considered money that's stumim that is not specifically designated? Diyamar yiplu linadavar, where we say the money is used for donations for communal karbonos. Kagon shefrishon biyachat stam. That's when you just separate it stam v'lohotzi b'svasav klum, and the person doesn't say anything at all. But if he makes any of these kind of statements again, Rav Ashi is saying that's considered mefurashin. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, Hada Amron Mo Stumin Yiplu Linadava. That which we said that again, if you have money that was not designated, it can be used as donation to the Beis Hamikdash for communal karbonos. Im nafla demei chatos mi beinei, and if the value of a carbon chatos fell from among them, harehein kemefurashin, then it would be treated like money that was specifically designated. Rashi says, Im nafla demei chatos mi beinei means to say, Im nevad o nifrad kashir demei chatos mi beinei. And if from that money it's either lost or separated the amount that would be the value of a chatas from among that money, harehen kemefurashin, then the money is treated like mefurashin. V'hashar lo yiplu linadava. You can't just use the rest for nadava as donation to the Beis Hamikdash for communal karbonos. Aval mevi b'dmei chetzion ola. Rather, what you're going to have to do is half of that money will be used for an ola, over d'mei chetzion shlamim v'lo lechem, and the other half will be used for carbon shlamim without the bread. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chavav Amud Beis.